White couple laughed. You can't afford dinner here. 30 minutes later, he paid for the whole room. What happens when a black tech founder walks into a luxury restaurant and they assume he doesn't belong? What unfolds next doesn't just silence the room, it flips the entire power dynamic of the city. Michael Duvall wasn't the kind of man who needed permission to sit down. Not in a boardroom, not in a classroom, and certainly not in a fine dining temple built more for status than sustenance. And yet, even a man built from steel and raised on strategy could feel it. That invisible syrup in the air. That thick tension that wasn't heat, wasn't humidity, but pure judgment, dripping off polished crystal chandeliers and white linen napkins folded with military precision. It oozed down the walls and clung to his shoulders like a silent accusation. You don't belong here. It was just another Friday night, as ordinary as Maison Ciel could be, a place where normal looked like four-figure watches and women with surgically fine-tuned lips. The kind that never kissed struggle, only sculpted smiles at charity galas. The menu didn't bother with prices. If you had to ask, you were already in the wrong place. And the staff wore gloves, not because of hygiene, but to remind guests that even service here came dressed in ceremony. Michael stepped in with the kind of grace you develop when you're black and successful and entering a white-owned space. Measured, deliberate, alert, without being aggressive. His shirt was crisp and brandless, shoes spotless, beard trimmed with the kind of care that said, I don't need logos to prove anything. He heard the murmurs before he even reached his table. He must be a courier, probably sat down by mistake. Ha! One voice floated up like spoiled perfume. Michael didn't flinch. He'd heard it all before. The snide jokes dressed as whispers, the tiny daggers people toss when they think you can't hear. But he could. He always could. And more importantly, he knew better than to let small minds dictate large moments. Tonight wasn't about a deal or a date or even celebration in the traditional sense. It was personal. A year of work, blood, code, and policy battles had paid off. His AI system, developed to diagnose chronic illnesses in underserved communities, was officially under contract with the Department of Health. He could have chosen anywhere to mark the moment. He chose here, Maison Ciel, because decades ago, his mother had been denied service in a place like this. Told her presence was a disturbance to the atmosphere. Tonight he came not for revenge, but for remembrance, and a glass of wine worthy of the journey. He sat quietly, ordered the full tasting menu, yes, the whole thing, and requested a bottle of Clos de la Roche, 2005. Not because he needed to impress anyone, because he knew precisely what that wine represented. Excellence earned, not borrowed. He hadn't even taken a sip before the next table's commentary began. Oh, would you look at that, scoffed a woman draped in a champagne-colored dress, voice drenched in mockery and too much Botox. New spin on fast food, or just a wrong turn on the GPS? Her companion, a thick-necked man with a forehead large enough for property tax, let out a condescending chuckle. No, babe. He probably confused Maison Ciel with McDonald's. Bet he's looking for the takeout window. Michael heard every word. So did the server. She froze, not out of ignorance, but paralysis. The kind bred from a lifetime of policies that say, we don't discuss race, just expectations. Still calm, Michael nodded at her and repeated his order. The wine, the menu, and, importantly, 2 glasses. I'm celebrating, he said with a calm so precise it sliced through tension like a knife through foie gras. He placed his card on the tray. Titanium, sleek, no visible logo. It pinged approval in under 4 seconds. The woman pursed her lips. The man went quiet. The server offered a slight bow, but it was already too late. He's smiling, hissed the woman, still trying to save face with venom. Thinks he won something. And then came the manager. White, bow tie, suspenders. Voice dipped in that syrupy tone reserved for saying no while pretending it's about policy. Sir, he said, I do apologize. We've received a few comments. Our restaurant specializes in maintaining a certain ambiance for members and regulars. Perhaps another location might suit you more comfortably. Michael didn't blink. I've already paid. I understand comfort is subjective, but I think the issue is that you're uncomfortable with my comfort. The manager straightened up, spine stiff like a patriot in a parade. It's not about you. We just prefer to avoid misunderstandings. Michael rose, not to leave, but to lead. He walked over to the bar. The bartender, stunned, nearly dropped a shot glass. How many guests in the dining room tonight? Michael asked. The bartender checked. 26, sir. Perfect, Michael replied, pulling out a second phone. The secure one, the one tied to his innovation fund. He tapped in a number. $28,643. Tax, tip, everything. Hit confirm. The register chimed, payment accepted. He turned toward the room. The couple, the manager, the staff, and the people who'd been pretending not to watch. All meals tonight are paid for. Wine, food, service, it's on me. But don't serve them immediately, he pointed at the couple. Let them wait. Let them sit in that same space they tried to box me into. Uninvited, unacknowledged. For a moment, silence ruled. And then, a chuckle. From the corner table, an older white couple raised their glasses. About time someone flipped the script, the man murmured. Michael walked out, not rushed, not triumphant, just done. But the evening wasn't. As he reached his car, a black Tesla washed by his own hands, he found himself face to face with the man from the dining room. Red-faced now, but not from embarrassment, from entitlement. You think that was clever? Spend a little money, play the hero, and now what? You expect applause? Michael said nothing. Opened the door. I know who you are, the man sneered. Michael Duvall, your little startup won't protect you. My wife's on the city procurement committee. I'm on the IT approval board. You played your card. Now it's our turn. See you at the audit. That's where the real games begin. He walked off like men used to ordering not just dinner, but consequences. Michael stood still. The wind grazed his face. No victory, no smile, just the unmistakable feeling that the night had ended, but the war had just begun. Back home, he texted Lorena, not just a colleague, but a co-builder of everything they'd risked and coded into existence. Audit's coming, get the files. Her reply came fast. Let them come. 7:59 a.m. The office of Neurocura wasn't even fully awake yet. The coffee machine had just finished brewing its first reluctant batch, the kind of corporate roast that tasted like ambition filtered through policy. And yet, there she was already. Lorena. Yes, that Lorena. The one with an engineer's logic and the soul of a street poet. She slammed 3 bulging folders onto the conference table, each tabbed with Post-its, highlighters, and one bright pink note that read, "In case they start squeezing our throats." Michael walked through the lobby like a man who'd been summoned, not startled. His assistant barely looked up, but still let out a breath that spoke volumes. Man, you seen them? They're already here. Oh, he'd seen them. Standing like 3 bureaucratic phantoms from the Department of Compliance and Cold Coffee. Sharp suits, tighter expressions, faces made for television but with eyes trained on conviction. One even held a Starbucks mint latte like he'd confused his role with a yoga retreat. The middle one, gray eyes, gray soul, stepped forward first. Michael Duvall, he said with that anchor-like cadence, as if his conscience had never been unpacked from its original packaging. Michael didn't blink. Morning. Conference room's this way. Unless you'd prefer to interrogate me next to the vending machine. No, the gray-eyed man replied without a smile. Conference room will suffice. They filed in like chess pieces. A knight, a bishop, and a rook, all dressed in silence. As soon as the door shut, the lead inspector cracked open his laptop. No introductions, no pleasantries, just business like bad news delivered before breakfast. Mr. Duvall, you're under investigation for alleged violations in ethical algorithmic design. Complaints have been filed suggesting conflicts of interest in discriminatory prioritization of patients in your latest diagnostic model. Michael let out a breathless chuckle, the kind you give a bitter cup of coffee when it's the only thing keeping you upright after a sleepless night. So let me get this straight. The algorithm designed to save Black lives faster, more efficiently, is now under investigation because it's too effective. We're not concluding anything yet, the inspector replied coldly. We're initiating a full operational freeze pending review. There it was. Not an argument, not a rebuttal, just bureaucratic sabotage via delay. Not an attack on his code, but on his time, his team, his sanity. Lorena leaned in toward Michael, her whisper sharp and warm at once. You know what this feels like? Like someone getting mad at EMTs because their patient wasn't on the family friends list. Michael didn't miss a beat. Careful, he muttered back. They might charge us for emotional misconduct under observation. He stood up and slow, deliberate, a man about to draw his sword, then pointed toward the folders. Colleagues, in folder A, you'll find the full architecture of our model, de-identified patient data, HIPAA-compliant protocols, and third-party validation reports. Folder B contains Department of Health approvals, and folder C, well, that's the kicker. That's the meeting transcript where your own commission voted unanimously to extend our pilot by 18 months. Now my question is, who filed this complaint? The lead inspector stiffened like someone told him his dental records had been leaked. His mouth said procedure, but his eyes screamed orders. Michael knew the look. He'd seen it before. Not on playgrounds or in courtrooms, but at every table where power whispered instead of shouting. So he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, tapped once, connected to the projector. The screen on the wall flickered. Logo, Westport Capital. Subject line, Maison Ciel incident follow-up. One line, plain as salt. Let this restaurant situation serve as a reminder. Perhaps now he'll remember his place, not as a host, but as a guest. Signed, Stephen Randolph. A name that should have meant nothing. But Stephen Randolph was no bystander. He sat on Chicago's Municipal Tech Procurement Board. The room went silent. You're suggesting, one of them began. Michael cut him off gently. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply sharing information. Funny thing about the truth, it makes some people itch, but if you sit with it long enough, it becomes surprisingly comfortable. The room stayed frozen in that middle place. Not guilt, not absolution, just the between. Then, a click. Lorena. She tapped her remote and flipped the slide. Graph 1. Diagnostic accuracy among Black patients, up 47%. Graph 2. Hospital readmissions in underserved communities, down 42%. Timeline, 3 months. She didn't speak like a software engineer. She spoke like someone tired of being called a case study. This isn't bias, she said. This is precision. You're just uncomfortable with the results because, for once, we're not the ones falling behind. Michael stepped forward again, voice calm but charged. Is this what we're calling bias now? Is it unethical because the people getting helped aren't the usual suspects? Or is the real issue that someone like me built it? The lead inspector slowly closed his laptop. This may exceed our immediate jurisdiction, he admitted. We'll escalate the matter to the Conflict of Interest Subcommittee. And the press? Michael asked, eyebrow raised. The inspector hesitated. That won't be necessary, Michael smiled faintly. Good to know, because they're already on their way. CNN, Forbes, and The Root, plus a few watchdog attorneys, just in case someone here thinks an algorithm with morals is somehow a national threat. He turned toward the glass door, his voice louder now, reverberating through the hallway, straight to reception. You came to audit code, but the real test here isn't syntax, it's comfort. It's about who's allowed to win without apology. My mother used to call this feeling a loud silence. You hear it when the system doesn't say no, but sure as hell doesn't say yes either. They left quietly, no questions. No more peppermint lattes, just the weight of implication, heavy as a sealed indictment. By evening, the restaurant footage resurfaced on social media. Same visuals, but a new title trending hard. Why Black Founders Still Can't Just Enjoy Dinner. An anonymous Reddit post from a former Maison Ciel intern dropped like a match in dry grass. It included a leaked screenshot of an internal chat where the manager wrote, "Double-check this guy's card. He seems too confident." That was it. That was the kind of comment that lit fires. Michael didn't celebrate. No victory dance. He just sat in his apartment, glass in hand, eyes watching the city pulse below. He heard a siren wail somewhere in the distance, and for a moment he wondered if someone else like him, or like his mother, or like Lorena, was being told again that existing too well was reason enough to be reviewed. His phone buzzed. Mayor's office. He paused just a second, then tapped accept. "Mr. Duvall," came the voice, careful and clipped. "We need to meet. Tomorrow, it's urgent. Concerns the future of your program." Michael stared at the screen a moment longer, then whispered aloud, not to the mayor, but to himself. Of course it is. The next morning started with a cup of coffee that went cold before the first sip. Michael sat quietly in the mayor's office, facing a window that framed Lake Michigan like a portrait. Glassy, still, indifferent. The kind of calm that politicians wore when they were about to apologize without ever calling it that. The mayor, a woman in her 50s, with a face often described by news anchors as resolute, sat across from him. Her blazer was crisp, her posture rehearsed. Every word that came from her lips sounded like it had been cleared by a legal department and polished by a PR team. "Mr. Duvall," she began, her voice even, "we want to publicly support your project, especially considering what happened at Maison Ciel and the pressure you faced since. It was unacceptable. And I personally, as a representative of this administration, would like to—" "No need," Michael cut in, gently but firmly. "This isn't Yelp. You don't need to rate the city's moral failure. You're not personally responsible for a system that passes down discrimination like tax write-offs. Just tell me what's next." She paused. This wasn't the script she'd been handed. There's been direction from higher up to preserve your contract, to expand the pilot program, but she trailed off. "But," Michael's eyebrow lifted, "there's a condition. You'll need to sign a non-disclosure agreement. What you shared, the internal memos, the tender board connections, it's classified. If you keep making those documents public, you increase the city's liability." Michael laughed. Not loudly, not for show, just the kind of slow, grounded laugh a man lets out when someone offers him a thimble of water to put out a house fire and wants a receipt for it. "Let me get this straight," he said, leaning back. "You want me to keep saving lives quietly? Sit down, shut up, and let the city pretend it's defending me while asking me to muzzle the truth? You have to understand," she began. "Politics isn't about battles, it's about compromise." He stood, calmly, no theatrics, just intention. "You know the difference between compromise and capitulation?" he asked. "Compromise requires mutual respect. Capitulation is born from fear, and I'm not the one who's afraid." He walked out, no slamming of doors, just silence that settled like dust, soft but permanent. By the time he reached his office, the internet was already on fire. Someone had leaked the audio from his meeting with the Oversight Committee. Another had posted his slideshow. And a third, someone from Maison Ciel, it seemed, uploaded footage of that infamous couple demanding the restaurant scrub the incident from the web. The caption was surgical. "This isn't cancel culture, it's consequence." On the way home, Michael stopped by his usual grocery store, the kind where the cashier knew his name and the security guard didn't follow him down the aisles. While he was bagging a loaf of bread and some sweet potatoes, a man approached him. Older, salt and pepper hair, the hands of someone who'd built things, and eyes that held more lived experience than any biography could contain. "You're the guy," he said quietly. "The one from Maison Ciel. Thank you. My niece, and she's diabetic. Your algorithm caught her condition early. She got treatment. She's doing good now. Just wanted to say, we see you, and we don't forget." It wasn't flashy. It wasn't viral. It was real. A week later, an envelope arrived at Michael's door. Inside, a letter from the director of Maison Ciel, a formal apology, and a voucher, yes, a voucher, for a complimentary dinner. When Michael showed it to Lorena, she nearly choked on her coffee. "They kicked you out, humiliated you, triggered an audit, and now they're offering you fettuccine as an apology?" she said. "That's like punching you in the face and handing you a tissue." Michael smirked. "You know what I'm going to do?" he said. "I'm going to book out the entire place, pay for every table, but this time, I'm inviting my own." And he did. He created a public invitation, Evening of Equality, for those who were ever called the wrong kind. Entry based on dignity. The night was unforgettable. The tables were filled with software engineers from the Bronx, teachers from the South Side, nurses from overworked clinics, community organizers, students, parents, and artists. No one wore labels. No one needed credentials. What they carried was self-respect. Michael stood at the end of the night, holding his glass aloft. "There was a time," he said, "when someone told me I couldn't afford to eat here. Tonight I afforded it, for myself and for all of you. For everyone who's ever been told they were too black, too bold, too much. This isn't a victory. It's a reminder. We're here, and we're not asking permission." Applause didn't follow like at a gala. It rose like thunder at a family reunion. Messy, joyful, earned. Within a month, Michael's AI was adopted as part of a national healthcare pilot, not because of the applause, but because the noise from the restaurant, the audit, and the leaked letters had sparked a chain reaction. Westport Capital came under federal review. News outlets dug into the committee's practices. And that contract which some tried to bury, it became the model for ethical tech development in underserved communities. As for Maison Ciel, the restaurant closed for renovations. Word on the street said it was permanent. The head chef quit, the clientele vanished. The building still stood, but on Google Maps, a quiet label appeared, temporarily not serving everyone. And Michael? He kept working. No medals, no interviews, because he understood something deeper than recognition, that the loudest thing he ever did was remain himself in a room where they hoped he'd disappear. And when he looked out at Lake Michigan again, this time from the new wing of Neurocura's clinic, he didn't see stillness, he saw clarity. And he wasn't done.